or with a live moment. Anyway, so here we go. The Loki Checkout, first of all, is a very fast, what we call developer-friendly Magento checkout. But of course, the proof of is in the pudding. So I'm hoping to share with you a couple of details on why we think the Loki Checkout is fast and why we think it's developer-friendly. So it's currently a collaboration between Yireo and Citation in the form of Ruud. But we actually are growing rapidly with more people coming on board. And we're doing all of that under the label Loki Extensions. And now Loki Extensions was a little bit broader than the first name that we came up with, and that's Loki Checkout. But I'll comment upon that later on, as soon as I'm discussing a couple of other details outside of the scope of Loki Checkout. But yeah, the Loki Checkout on itself is ready for Luma, it's ready for Hyva, and it's ready for Breeze themes. And currently, we already have a couple of showcases. But one of the really cool showcases is definitely Amnesty International that went live actually a month ago or so. And yeah, with this webinar, we're basically allowing ourselves to promote at least that specific showcase. But more upon a couple of other showcases later. I first want to go back to a couple of the details, a couple of the basic features that is there with the Loki Checkout. So first of all, it's ready for Luma. So here you can see actually that the Luma logo was replaced with a Loki logo, but everything else is just Luma. And if you don't believe me, well, just go over to this demo site, luma.demo.lokicheckout.com, and then you can get a live sample. Similarly, there's a Hyva demo as well. And as you can see, if I go back and forth a little bit, actually the Hyva demo is now also showing a Dutch translation. But basically, if you compare the two, then actually both are pretty similar. And that's actually because we bring our own JavaScript stack to the table. And I'm making it a little bit more technical, but basically to go back to one of the key elements, key ingredients of the Loki Checkout is actually that it's pretty fast. And well, that's coming from a certain background, of course. So Ruud actually told me in the beginning that I should just pause right here. So if you open up an old Luma checkout and you click upon the checkout process, often there's a loader, and that loader often takes seconds to disappear. And currently this screenshot is actually, or this screencast is actually taken with a slow 4G connection, as you can see there in the bottom. So point taken, the Magento Luma checkout is slow. So if we compare things actually with the Loki checkout, and I'm going to show you a similar screencast that I just showed you of Luma. I'm going to do the same thing with Loki. But if we simply look at the numbers, if we look at what kind of resources are being loaded, then actually one of the things that will strike you most in this little graph is actually the amount of JavaScript that is loaded into Luma checkout compared to actually the Loki checkout in Luma as well. So it's the same theme, but it's basically a different checkout. And because we actually stick to a different JavaScript approach, immediately actually this has dramatic results. Now I'm getting to the end results, kind of like an end comparison later on. But simply put, if we compare the Loki checkout under Luma with the old Luma checkout, then the result or the difference is going to be staggering, simply because of the decrease in JavaScript load. Now, the funny thing is actually that we went out to create actually a checkout that was compatible for Hyva and for Luma. We also created actually that Loki checkout under Hyva, and actually most of the development actually happens under Hyva theme as well. So naturally, we also need to compare things between the Hyva checkout and the Loki checkout. And the stupid thing there, or the awesome thing from our point of view, is actually that the same dramatic difference is actually there with the Hyva checkout as well. So as you can see, blue is the Hyva checkout, red is the Loki checkout. And if you compare the resources on the HTML level, on the CSS level, on the fonts level, there's actually things to say and explain why actually the load under the Loki checkout is a little bit heavier. But the main point is actually that the total size of JavaScript is just so much smaller with the Loki checkout. And in the end, this leads into a certain performance graph. And to stress this maybe even more, we can also do this actually under Luma as well. So if you compare things between the Hyva checkout under Hyva themes, the Loki checkout under a Luma theme, then actually we see that same difference. And I'm going to comment upon a couple of these details. So for instance, here you can see that the font size with Luma is actually always there, while with the Hyva checkout, there's no font size, so fonts are loaded in a different way. But that's basically the implementation details between what you would do with a checkout for a specific customer and what we would offer out of the box. Personally, I believe actually the main point here for us to sell to you is actually that the JavaScript stack is just a lot smaller. Now, those numbers earlier were a little bit difficult maybe to interpret, so let me put this in a different way. On top, we can see the Luma checkout. Below is the Hyva checkout. Below that is the Loki checkout with Luma. And then finally, the Loki checkout under a Hyva theme. And that again basically shows the difference. Now, it's a little bit difficult to compare all of these different sites. So all of these numbers were actually taken from official demo sites. And naturally, we know that the Luma checkout is slow because, well, we're all used to that kind of. But with the Hyva checkout, it's kind of striking that the red stuff in there, the JavaScript load, is actually pretty large. And simply put, that's actually largely due to the fact that MageWire is being used, because the other part of JavaScript within Hyva themes and therefore also Hyva checkout is Alpine. And that's actually making up the JavaScript stack in Loki checkout as well. The other minor differences are dealing with the HTML size, CSS size, and etc. And I'm going to comment upon that CSS stuff later on. But it's kind of funny to see that a lot of us were always convinced that actually Luma was slow. And now you can actually see a Loki checkout running under Luma being very, very fast. And there's a reason for that. I'm going to talk about that reason later on a little bit more. But at first, the story is going to be about the Loki checkout. And to the very least, you can see that the numbers are actually quite cool. And because the size in JavaScript and a couple of other resources is so optimal, the Lighthouse performance scores are optimal as well. So under the Luma checkout, in an optimized demo, it's 89. In the Hyva checkout, their own official demo, it's 96. And the Loki checkout under Luma and the Loki checkout under Hyva both score 100. But theoretically above, but yeah, the number doesn't go above the 100. So pretty cool, I would say. And actually, this is already maybe one big reason to choose the Loki checkout. So I promised you earlier the screencast that I showed you earlier under the Luma checkout. And now here we can see actually the Loki checkout under Hyva in this case. And as soon as you click actually from the cart page into the checkout, you see that the jump is almost instant. And that's heavily mainly due to the fact that the JavaScript size, the number of resources being loaded is just a lot smaller. So yeah, we kind of believe that the page load, the initial page load of the Loki checkout is optimal. However, as soon as actually a customer goes into the checkout, certain fields are being entered and so forth. And at that moment, actually, page updates, sequential page updates are important as well. And that's something that we focused upon as well with a specific technology that I'm trying to explain in layman's terms first, and then actually I'm going to take the developer approach, followed up by a little bit of a screencast. So first of all of the updates on the page are just simply fast. It's not causing any delays, and up to even a point that we first initially created a lot of different components on the page, allowing for loader icons to be shown. But then we did a little bit of research, and it appears that if you're waiting for, let's say, 400 milliseconds for a specific page update to occur, then 400 milliseconds is close to the blink of an eye. But if that blink of an eye actually still catches up with a loader icon, it just works confusing. So we actually added a configuration option to not show loader icons below a certain loading speed, and that's I believe actually out of the box 600 or 700 milliseconds. But it could be lowered, it could be higher, depending upon your own situation. But it's kind of funny that we needed to include a setting to prevent loader icons from being displayed in the first place, because otherwise it was just too confusing that the page update was almost instant, but then still you would show a loader icon. So anyway, let me take a little bit of the developer approach in explaining what actually happens underneath. So actually within the Loki checkout, every single field, the steps in total, a button to proceed from one step to another, all of those elements are actually Alpine components, and all of those Alpine components are shipped with Ajax functionality. And as soon as actually a single component is requesting something from the Magento backend, then actually an Ajax request is sent, but it's actually pushed first into a certain queue. That queue only has a artificial delay of 50 milliseconds, but theoretically it could even be lower. And then actually after that certain delay, the queue is empty, then all of the Ajax requests are sent towards Magento. On the Magento side, every request is just simply dealt with. So for instance, if you're entering a first name, then, well, the first name is entered into the quote as well. And then after that procedure, one or more blocks, and we call them targets, are actually rendered on the Magento side. Everything is sent back to the client side, to the browser, as one single Ajax response. And then actually accordingly, all of those blocks, all of those targets are updated on the page as well. And now the coolest part is actually that all of this takes place in one single Ajax request, one single HTTP request. And automatically this leads actually into an excellent performance. So a little screencast to demonstrate this. Currently I'm actually using the autofill of the browser, which means that the first name, the last name, the street 1 and street 2 are all actually pushed into that Ajax queue. And then out comes actually a single response that is sent to the server, comes back to the browser again. And then on the right-hand side, you can see that that order preview is updated instantly. And the cool part is actually that it already feels pretty quickly. You see maybe a couple of glitches like street 1 and street 2. It's not a perfect demo. It's actually my development environment. And that number of the loading speed, so 639 milliseconds, is actually still my developer environment. So as soon as I would push this into production, in the production mode, then believe, of course, that this is even faster. But it's basically the technology behind it that is causing all of this. And therefore, we believe that if we sell the Loki checkout to be fast, it's not just an opinion. It's not that we can't compare numbers. We do actually have those numbers, and we constantly check up whether those numbers are actually still accurate. And that's kind of like selling point number 1. So I'm going to dive into a lot of different things of the Loki checkout. Because of the confusion at first, I didn't really welcome you in full properly. But if you have any questions, feel free to post them actually on the YouTube channel in the chat box there. Ruud is actually going to pick up upon those questions, and then later on I'll be able to answer all of those questions as well. All right, so. Let's pause for a moment. Basically, I've introduced the Loki checkout, and I've introduced also the main selling point almost, which is the performance. And believe it or not, if I personally say that the Loki checkout is currently the fastest checkout in the whole market, then I truly believe that, and I'm eager to hear elsewhere otherwise. But let's actually stick to those numbers. Let's do benchmarking to see if this is actually true or not. But it's not the only selling point. So we do have a lot of other features in the Loki checkout, but I'm almost calling them kind of like the things that you would expect anyway of a checkout. So first of all, there's a theming layer. It's maybe a little bit confusing, but there's the normal Magento theme. But then within the Loki checkout, there's also a thing called theme. And that's how you could switch between a one-step checkout, multi-step checkout. But there's also other custom checkouts possible as well. Login first was actually developed lately because of a demand of a potential client. And Ruud actually also developed an easy flow checkout. So we're investigating kind of like still what kind of other themes are made possible, but rest assured, it's customizable as well. Another point in there is that we have a thing called the address grid layout. So you've got a shipping address, you've got a billing address, and there's a way to order all of the different fields as of yet by defining it in XML, but we're planning also to do something more in a user-friendly way from the Magento admin panel, but that's actually something for the roadmap. But sorting orders, tailwind classes, the column span and the medium column span, it's all basically something that you can configure. And even cooler, and that didn't end up in the slides, but there's an opportunity even to reorder specific fields or even change the CSS classes per country. And that would theoretically lead into a totally different address grid layout, a different look and feel of the address form if you're selecting one country to another. I'm not sure if that's really useful to a lot of shops because it could lead into confusion as well. But that kind of stuff is also thought of. It's already there in the core. Other features include GeoIP for the country detection, an account type to easily toggle between a company or an individual field, customer type, I should say, editing the card, customer node, EUV, EU VAT validation, and we put a lot of attention also into specific developer helpers. But rest assured, basically, that there's a lot of features that we came up with already. And therefore we could say that the Loki checkout is already pretty stable. However, the devil is of course in the details. I think most of you listening in are going to be working actually for some kind of agency, or you're actually eager to know how things could be customized as well. And for that, basically, we went through a lot of different scenarios. We had interviews actually with different people to basically find out what was needed, what was annoying in other checkouts. And we came up with a huge listing. This is just a little bit of a sample, but this is what we believe something that you would regularly encounter while customizing different checkouts. So adding a new field, adding a new custom step, changing imagery, changing the way that certain fields or even steps are validated. It's all basically something that we thought about and that we came up with a solution for. And sometimes it's kind of like a simple scenario that is even leading into something with a simple setting. Sometimes it's actually something that we need to explain through a tutorial on our documentation site. But rest assured, we thought about a lot of different customizations. And because of that, actually, we kind of feel that a lot of the features in that core set are taken care of already. All right, so the current state is basically something that I would like to take you to discuss, basically to answer a specific question. Is Loki Checkout actually ready for your specific use case? And to talk about the current state, I'm going to go through a couple of things. There's a solid foundation, a developer experience. There's a certain approach that we call first-party approach, but that term basically needs to be explained. We still have also a growing number of integrations, so basically take your pick. And then last but not least, there's also a couple of showcases. But let me begin with that first bullet point, a solid foundation. So that foundation is basically not necessarily depending upon features, but it's basically depending upon the core behavior that we see as fundamental. So one of the things out there is CSP compliance or PCI compliance, PCI DSS compliance. It needs to be there in a modern shop. And others are jumping to that same story as well. However, what we are doing is basically develop anything that we develop with the CSP mode enabled, the strict mode enabled, meaning also that nothing ever makes the cut by being not CSP compliant. We just make sure that CSP compliance is basically the starting point. In a similar way, we actually rigorously test for WCAG 2.1 compliance. So that's basically accessibility. And from a government point of view, at least in the Netherlands, or I believe also in the EU, a double A is mandatory, but we actually make it a habit to test for triple A, just to make sure that everything is ready. And again, every time that we release something, we double check whether that compliance is being met. And that actually leads into extensive testing on multiple different levels: unit testing, integration testing, playwright testing, and funnily enough, also that lighthouse testing. And before you start talking about but lighthouses, that's just a measure that could change. Indeed, so that basically what we test for is that if we roll out things on our personal demo site, the lighthouse score regarding performance should be 100. And if it drops below 100, then basically we know that something has changed, and we'd rather just jump on it to make sure that things are fixed, instead of just saying, well, yeah, lighthouse score, who cares? So we use it as a metric, so that the bar is basically never lowered. In a similar way, we do that with PHP Stan. We do that with PHP Code Sniffer. We try to meet a minimum requirement, but we also make sure that a certain extension together with PHP Stan reaches a certain level. Then we pinpoint that specific level, and then we make sure that for every release afterwards, that pinpoint is not lowered, but basically remains the same. So we rigorously test a lot of different things. And the question maybe is why? Well, we truly believe that if you test things on this level in a hardcore way, then basically it leads into a higher quality of code. And the funny thing is that higher quality is good for you, but it's actually also good for us, because if we test a lot of things and a lot of things are broken all of the times as well, then actually the troubleshooting process is pretty hard. But now we are able to actually make sure that the testing are intercepting already a magnitude of different issues, so that only the issues that are, let's say, more complicated are the things that are left with. So we're actually really eager to also see this in more use case scenarios. Maybe I shouldn't say this because otherwise I'm running out of time, but we also did something funny for Playwright. We made sure that every single extension is tested for with a certain combination of settings with Playwright, meaning that if you've got a configuration setting in the backend foobar 1, then your extension would behave different than if that foobar setting would be disabled. And with Playwright, we basically test for both scenarios. It makes the running of the tests a little bit slower, but for us, again, it's guaranteeing that behavior is just awesome. Now, on top of it, we basically went through already a listing of a couple of common customizations. And while doing that, we basically want to make sure that the developer flow, the developer experience, while making those customizations is, well, let's call it a happy path. So that means basically that we want to make sure that whatever code is there in the core, that it's fully extensible in an easy way. First of all, by having the documentation, but also simply by sticking to the Magento core technology. And often a lot of the scenarios that you need to build can be built already with XML layout and templates, and sometimes a little bit of Alpine logic. But even though that the core itself, the inner workings are more complex, we believe that a lot of the customizations are actually fairly easy to make. And I'm actually skipping one line here in the presentation, the very first bullet point: template overrides are rarely needed, thanks to CSS utils. Well, that's actually a little hidden gem, and I'll talk more about that later, because it's also kind of like key to the ability to port the Loki Checkout from Hyva into Luma and forth and back in other themes as well. But one stressing point there is that thanks to Loki CSS utils, it's no longer a necessity to copy a template from the original extension. So in this case, the Loki Checkout, copying it to your own custom theme, just to change CSS classes. So for specifically CSS classes, we come up with a rule: don't create template overrides unless you really need to. And that's basically something that we're also trying to change in the Magento ecosystem. There's an open source utility called Loki CSS utils behind it, and I'm going to comment upon that utility in a bit as well. Now, if we talked about the core, then actually a very important other point about having a checkout in the first place is to see it integrate with other third-party solutions. And often when we talk about third-party solutions, let's call a certain payment provider or shipping provider or some kind of remote API that you want to use, then we're often actually inclined to also think about third-party extensions. But actually with Loki, we try to turn that around. We try to turn that around into something that we call first-party approach. It's basically saying that with the most wanted third-party solutions, we try to build that integration ourselves, making sure that actually the same quality guidelines that I've just mentioned earlier are also applied to those new extensions. But likewise, actually, if such a third-party extension or third-party solution needs to be connected into the Loki Checkout, and it leads actually into, let's say, kind of like a shortcoming or something that could be improved in the Loki Checkout at first, then actually we'd rather do that instead of just sticking with that third-party solution only. So through this approach, first-party approach, we actually gained a lot of knowledge about how actually the perfect integration should look like. And a funny story there is basically that we developed a couple of PSPs known in the Netherlands, including Buckaroo, PNL, MultiSavePay, IcePay, and Molly. We actually developed all of those extensions in parallel, which kind of like sounds crazy, but thanks to that, we saw the differences between all of the PSPs, but we also saw all of the common areas of PSPs, which basically leads into faster troubleshooting, faster problem solving, and that's again a kind of like a benefit to you, I would say. Now, the first party approach is one thing, and it's applied basically to a number of extensions already out there. So currently this listing, if you look at all of the extensions without that tilde in front of it, those extensions are already existing and maintained by us. In between the tilde is basically something that is work in progress. Some of those integrations like Stripe and Agen and Shipper HQ Enhanced, the MST extensions are actually already progressed in a fair way. So it could be that already in a couple of months those integrations are happening in a live moment, but the other ones are still work in progress. And all of that is basically something that we pick up upon ourselves. And the funny thing is there actually that let's say the refactorings that we need to do on the core logic, so that's basically that thing that we discussed in earlier slides, is getting less and less and less, and actually most of the attention nowadays goes into the integration of all of these third-party solutions. And of course, the listing is not complete, right? So we actually need to be fair and humble there. There's a lot of different integrations that could be happening, but as of yet, the ones that made this cut that you can see right here are actually the extensions that were needed by partners, needed by specific projects, and I'll later comment upon the pricing of the Loki Checkout as well. But basically, there's a level of collaboration in there as well, and basically what is needed is something that could be prioritized and could be developed. I maybe also want to shout out a couple of upcoming partnerships. So we're integrating together with Coliber their modules. We're integrating a couple of MST modules together with MST, and the same with Headworks. That's already starting kind of like a conversation that there's not just the Loki Checkout and the Loki team being involved, but actually other extension vendors as well. And we're hoping to create kind of like a healthy ecosystem around all of this. Now, a couple of those extensions were already built, and then sooner or later, actually, this use case came up. And we're really, really proud of it that it's currently the #1 showcase of the Loki Checkout that we can demo. It's actually not built by us, but by 3 web apps. They picked up upon creating a new web shop for Amnesty International. I have to say that it's the Dutch dependency of Amnesty International. And in their integration, they migrated an old site towards Hyva. Hyva themes. They also included the Buckaroo integration and post-code integration. But the funny thing is, while the majority of the work was actually done by 3 web apps, we were basically also with developing everything in a more perfect way as it came to the Loki Checkout. So I remember actually that we had conversations with the developers of 3 web apps, not necessarily about fixing bugs, but more about that they were eager to create a certain template override, and that we went back to the table to see whether we could live without that template override. So shortly put, it was a well collaboration, and we're still going to work more with 3 web apps as well. Now there's other showcases as well. There's FreshONL built by Hymanti Deckards. There's MyPOS LED-verlichting, and there's the Yireo shop also as a use case. And the funny thing there is also that you can note that MyPOS and the Yireo shop are actually both based upon Luma. It basically shows that a certain site could be running a Hyva theme, it could be running a Luma theme, it could be running a Breeze theme, or theoretically yet something else. But the Loki Checkout is basically just a perfect fit, at least for these showcases. All right, so we personally believe that the Loki Checkout is definitely ready. There's already showcases to preview. The performance is great. There's a certain feature coverage that we're personally pretty proud for. And often we already get requests from clients or agencies that basically have a certain need for a specific checkout. And whenever we actually hear that request, the first thing that we actually do is, well, we would love selling you the Loki Checkout, but let's actually first go to the drawing board. What kind of PSP, what kind of payment provider is in there? What kind of shipping method is needed? And then only if actually that readiness check is passed, then actually the Loki Checkout is definitely a good fit. But that being said, we're dealing with a lot of those integrations as work in progress. So we're actually also happy to hear from you if you have a specific need for the Loki Checkout. There's a certain integration that you're after, but it's not listed on our website. Do let us know, because we're eager to actually expand the portfolio pretty quickly. And it's all about helping each other out. And hopefully we can help you definitely out with a good checkout as well. Now, I talked about the performance earlier, and because of that, actually, we're kind of eager to push actually that the performance of the Loki Checkout is dramatically different from the performance of other checkouts, and therefore we believe that actually the next challenge would be to have Loki Checkout up and running in certain shops before Black Friday. So the time is short, but if you believe that actually your current web shop has a checkout that is still underperforming, and you believe that actually with Black Friday all of that should be fixed, give us a call, send us an email, and we're happy to go through this readiness check and see whether it's actually a viable option. All right, so the funny thing is the Loki Checkout performance, features, extensions, integrations, it's already, I believe, actually a huge story. And we're now 36 minutes into the webinar. And I personally believe that maybe you're getting tired already a little bit, but we actually have more for you coming up. Because in my story, I basically showed you a couple of numbers where the Loki checkout under Luma was performing better than any other checkout and any other theme in the whole ecosystem as of yet. And then you might be saying, okay, but how on earth are you doing that? Luma is slow. We all have been taught actually that thing. So how do we come up with a solution that is actually making Luma faster than actually the competitors that have been sold to be faster than Luma? Well, the reason is this thing that we call Loki theme for Luma, and it might be still something that we need to rename, because it's actually not a theme. Currently, it's more kind of like an ongoing project with at least one module, and that module is open source. It's called Loki theme _ Luma components, and that specific module is actually doing something, let's say, stupid. It's removing all of the legacy JavaScript, and then actually with that broken page, it's trying to replace all of the different snippets that you commonly would need on that specific page. With modern JavaScript, that's Alpine, that's native JavaScript components, and all of that is maybe breaking the page. But specifically in the checkout is actually a page where you don't need the menu, you don't need the mini cart because you're already in the checkout. You don't need a lot of different things, and therefore it was actually kind of easy to make sure that this new strategy was actually workable in the checkout. And the end result is pretty cool. So again, Loki theme for Luma is just ripping out all of the JavaScript. If you would not have done that, then actually the Loki checkout would still work in Luma, but just simply a lot slower because there's a lot of JavaScript involved that you would actually not need. The screenshot that you see right here is actually taken from a Luma CMS homepage. And that actually also proves that the same approach is also working for other pages as well. It's work in progress, but definitely in the checkout, it's basically already working. And the numbers again show you kind of like that this is indeed true. So the red stuff is JavaScript again. The topmost picture is showing the normal load that's including knockout, require, all of the stuff that is normally loaded within Luma. And then on top of it, actually Alpine. The picture below that is basically showing that all of the JavaScript still has been removed. And the end result is basically that you get a perfect Lighthouse score. And it's still work in progress because, as you can see, there's a lot of orange stuff. And even though we at Loki and, well, we at Magento as well, we love orange, I personally believe in this case that the CSS is still something that should be fixed. However, we see that less as a responsibility of the Loki checkout. It's more into the hands of the theme itself. And I'm still going to comment upon that later with the CSS utility and with a couple of other IDs about Loki theme. But for the use case that we meant it for, making the Loki checkout under Luma extremely fast, it's already a success. There's already a couple of use cases that I mentioned that are using Loki checkout under Luma, and they're also using the Loki theme with a success, because basically ripping out the majority of the JavaScript in the checkout page with Loki checkout simply just works. So yeah, we're slowly hanging into other parts of the story. So the Loki checkout was something that I introduced at first, but now you can see that actually kind of like a core technology underneath that under Luma is called Loki theme for Luma. And that's basically the thing that is responsible for an amazing Lighthouse score on the theme that we always dubbed to be slow and horrible and etc. So that might still be the case, but okay. Now, it's kind of like that we try to build a technology in the form of Loki, hence Loki extensions, Loki components, and that's implemented in the Loki checkout. But about half a year ago, we slowly start to think about, hey, but what if the same technology is actually living in the backend as well? So the following is just a brief story. Theoretically, we need a separate webinar purely to focus upon this area. But the technology that is there in the Loki checkout is something that you can also use and use for free in the admin panel. And it allows you basically to create a grid or a form with less than 50 lines of XML code. And basically this little description is maybe something that you should have sunken in. Because if you're a developer in Magento and you know about grids and forms, then you should know that it's based upon this UI component XML, and that's not built with just 15 lines of code. No, it's actually built with maybe 400 or 500 plus lines of code. And even worse, all of those lines of code are something that nobody understands. So we're basically bringing it back to the essentials. Within the XML layout, you can do a lot of different things with configuring. There's PHTML templates that you could reuse. And the common scenarios that you would need in a common grid are already basically there. The following screenshots hopefully give you a little bit of evidence. I'm not going to talk about the code, but all of the code is placed on GitHub. And we also have a documentation section in progress. But basically here you can see some of the action. A CMS page grid, just a proof of concept. We're not intending to replace everything in the Magento admin panel yet. But basically this grid was just created with a lot less effort. In a similar way, there's an array provider. There's something that you could just load depending upon your own data source. And basically this little example, I believe I built this in under 1 hour. And that's kind of amazing if you compare this actually with other UI components as well. We're even up to the level that we're trying to replicate everything that is in the regular catalog product grid. It's not fully working yet, but the things that you can see right here in the screenshot, it's completely functional. And not because we want to replace the product manager, but simply because we want to make sure that the Loki admin components are living up to that expectation, are living up to that task as well. Well, and whatever actually is working in a grid is actually also something that is working in forms. So this is actually a real life scenario that I personally built based upon Loki admin components. It's something that is simply locked up in our own personal shop, but maybe sooner or later I can just share a couple of things on the open source level as well. And just another example. There's a CMS page form. So it's again kind of like a proof of concept. And as you can see in the screenshot, a lot of things are still missing. The page layout, I believe, needs to be a multi-select. The page ID is actually empty. Identifier actually needs to be a different label. But the funny thing is actually this is only 10 lines of code. This is only the bare minimum. And as you can see, this Loki admin components approach is it's drafting up a page grid or a specific form pretty quickly, so that as a developer you can then jump in and customize things more thoroughly. So it's actually fully unrelated to the Loki checkout, but basically it's the same kind of benefits that we offer with the Loki checkout as well. It's a faster development time. It's easier to troubleshoot thanks to an easier architecture. It's a faster performance. And what we personally believe is that thanks to Loki admin components, maybe you've been living with a certain attitude that you don't want to build specific grids and forms anymore because it's just overly complex. And thanks to Loki admin components, we can do that again. So theoretically, having a product grid for a specific type of customer, so that only specific details are being modified and not everything, that suddenly becomes a viable option again, thanks to Loki admin components. So slowly we're trying to push basically other things into the developer hands apart from the Loki checkout. And with that, actually, we're slowly changing things in the Magento ecosystem, and we're actually not done yet. So the Loki checkout is pretty reliable. The Loki admin component is actually already live, but it's just depending upon what kind of scenario you want to build with it. The Loki theme for Luma is actually used in the Loki checkout as well, and in a couple of other places. But there's actually more that I wanted to share with you as well. So, for instance, Loki map components. The screenshot is maybe not perfect, but it's Google Maps driven by an Alpine architecture. And basically this same approach is something that we're eager to push back into the Loki checkout, so that if there's a specific shipping provider that needs to be selected, and then you can select a specific pickup location from a map, then maybe another shipping provider needs the exact same functionality. And in the current ecosystem, all of those shipping providers are just doing something with a map. One extension doesn't have a map functionality, the other one has a map functionality, but it's broken, yet another one is perfect. And basically what we would like to do is introduce a common layer for all of those mapping functionalities. And that's kind of like where we came from with the Loki map components. The intent is basically to allow any kind of shipping solution within the Loki checkout to reuse this mapping functionality as well. It's not there yet, but it's work in progress. Another thing that is actually already fully operational, because it's part of the Loki checkout, are Loki field components. But what if we can actually use those fields in other places outside of the Loki checkout as well? So we're slowly expanding our wings and seeing in what areas, what other the non-checkout areas could be could there be a benefit of the Loki technology? And with field components, definitely there's something to say. Now, slowly the last part about the technology. I've been talking about CSS flexibility for some time already. There's a difference between Luma and Hyva, of course. But what we try to aim for is actually something that is driven by a small little utility. So it's technical right away. Here you can see a snippet from a PHTML template. So if you ignore all of the HTML and all of the no escaping, then you might spot actually that there's a $CSS function. It's actually an executable class. And in a similar way, there's actually a style as well, but that's actually not shown here. And both CSS and style are basically something interesting. They're intercepting the default CSS classes or default CSS styles that you would put in the PHTML template. And then by default, they're just putting it out again in the HTML of the page. But in between, you can actually modify things either in the XML layout level or on the PHP level, which means actually that if we focus upon that first line, there you can see a div with a class called flex. We can replace actually that flex with grid, for instance, simply by adding a specific XML layout statement. And we can even create our own PHP parsers to manipulate all of these CSS classes as well. Well, one of the questions you might ask, why? Well, first of all, there's a huge benefit there that we overlook with all of the other theming solutions out there. And that's actually that we got so accustomed to overriding a specific PHTML template just for the sake of overriding the CSS, that actually with this approach, you don't need to override any kind of template if it's only the CSS that you want to modify. And earlier I came up with this statement towards the developers that with the Loki checkout, you don't want to have template overrides. Well, basically, the CSS utility is responsible for that. And the cool part, it's open source, so it's up for grabs for any other project that wants to depend upon it. We personally see this as part of the success, but also part of kind of like a funny little thing that we're still exploring. So if you focus upon actually the PHTML, it would be perfect possible to have one single PHTML template be compatible with both Hyva, meaning Tailwind, and Luma, it's less. And for that matter, we can also migrate actually into other CSS frameworks as well. There's a Snowdog SAS theme already for ages out there. There's Valgia. Under the hood of MageOS, there's also a UIKit theming being built. And all of those CSS frameworks are actually perhaps differentiating between the imported style sheets plus all of the CSS classes that you use in the HTML. But thanks to the CSS utility, you can just make sure that the PHTML template remains the same. Theoretically, the JavaScript level remains the same. And then you can actually migrate quite easily from one real theme to another. It's still work in progress, but this is kind of like the vision that we try to share in the forms of Loki theme. All right, so a lot of talking about a lot of things that I've been sharing. So rest assured, the webinar is going to be streamed now currently on YouTube, but later on you can just watch things back. But yeah, the fair question is basically, how can you get started with all of this? Well, first of all, the foundation of Loki is definitely also that we find open source very important. So Loki components, the thing that is underneath all of the other technologies, is free. Loki admin components, it's free. Loki CSS utility, it's free. It's a small utility, but quite powerful. And the whole experiment of Loki theme for Luma is again free as well. So we give away a lot of different things because we also believe that Loki Checkout, for instance, has been built on top of on top of Magento, and therefore we find it kind of like responsible to contribute back a lot of the things here as well. And that being said, with Loki Checkout, there's commercial packages. There's a standard package called standard for €645, professional package for €945. And basically the difference between the two is not the amount of packages that you get. There's currently 65 plus 8, so 73 different extensions making up the Loki checkout itself. And that's basically what you get with either standard or professional. But with standard, it's basically that you do the implementation, you take your pick, and if there's a bug, or if there's an issue with the existing software, we're happy to help you with that. but we're not going to do that extra mile and thinking about what kind of implementation would you need, what kind of integrations need to be built. Do we build that integration, or is it kind of like a collaboration between us? And that's actually included with the professional package. So I believe basically with the two, there's a lot of effort or a lot of worth already in it to take your pick. And now the professional part is including already a consultancy, but it could always be that you're actually looking for a partner that is also helping you integrate that entire checkout in the current shop, or perhaps you're not only interested in the checkout, but you also want to make sure that all of the CMS pages, or theoretically even product pages and category pages under Luma, are just blazing fast. And all of that is something that we can help with. We're not taking over the role of agencies. So whenever there's an agency involved, we would rather actually communicate with that agency. But if you don't have an agency, or if you just have a couple of developers in-house, we're happy to help out wherever we can. And with that, make sure that Loki theme, Loki admin components, everything Loki, but definitely also the Loki checkout is made to a success. So yeah, what is next? There's a lot of different things that we want to talk about. So earlier I started to talk about Loki theme, Loki admin components. There's not a lot of code that I shared with you, but theoretically that's coming up soon as well. So first of all, there's a roadmap. There's the first party integrations approach that we're still kind of fond of. On our website, there's a roadmap of milestones, and with every milestone, there's a certain magnitude of extensions or integrations that we would like to have. And we're still busy with that, and that's kind of like the main thing that we currently do. And again, if there's something that you would need for a specific project, we're happy to extend upon that roadmap as well. Just let us know. In a similar way, there's a couple of nice little things that we would like to improve with the Loki checkout. For instance, configuring the address grid through an admin configuration, integrating those maps into the Loki checkout, having the documentation to be extended with even more things. And apart from all of the Loki checkout stuff, we're actually also eager to push the open source projects of Loki admin components and Loki theme for Luma, even more to what we call feature parity. And it basically means that with the Loki admin component, it's running in the Magento admin. There's already grids and forms in the admin. So ideally, all of the features within those within that existing functionality is existing in Loki admin components as well. And that's basically the feature parity that we talk about. And last but not least, we're also opening up slowly for partnership. There's an official partner program underway, even though we already partnered up with tons of agencies and extension vendors. But we're happy actually to make that a little bit more concrete by putting up a partner program as well. And last but not least, we actually also have a roadmap for all of the events that are coming up. And it's ranging a little bit between major cities like New York, Amsterdam, and the small little city of Baarn. So if you're from the Netherlands, you might have heard about Baarn, but that's actually the location that I'm currently in. That's the Yireo office. And actually in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to organize the Loki Anything Hackathon. And anything basically stands for Loki checkout, admin components, the theme, and whatever you basically find in our portfolio. If you got inspired through this webinar, you're welcome to join us and play around with things as well. Then afterwards, we're joining the Hypernode Partner Day. You'll see us at the Magento Conference Germany. Then afterwards, we're going to go to New York City. We're back in Amsterdam with Meet Magento Netherlands, and then Poland, the city of Potsdam. Loki Christmas meetup is something that we just came up recently, but we're happy to basically just talk more about the Loki checkout and all of the other things that we're doing again in this space of the Yireo office. And finally, I'm personally also traveling down to India towards the end of January. But that being said, all of those events are something that you're going to attend or not. And we're actually kind of eager to hear from you as well. What kind of shops would you like to build with Loki Checkout? What kind of needs would you have in all of the other open source projects? But we basically believe that with Loki, we're putting down something that is interesting for the whole Magento ecosystem. And hopefully you agree with that as well. So I've been talking fast because of the technical issues at first, and I think actually that kept on going for about 5 minutes or so. But yeah, we're slowly reaching the end of the webinar. And then the question is basically, what kind of questions would be there popping up on the YouTube stream? So actually, I do have my hands here with on all of the questions. So Ruud, I don't necessarily need your help, or do I? Oh well, actually, I'm going to make it easier by reading from his document. All right, so let me go there. So first of all, one of the employees of Alexion is asking when we say that the checkout is CSP compliant, we are talking about the checkout itself, but not the payment methods. And then the follow-up is, I believe that 3DS is not possible to be CSP 4.1 compliant because of endless lists of domains to allow. Totally true. So it's depending actually upon what kind of solutions are there. And I know that discussion about endless lists needing to be included. I know also that some payment portals actually go that length to make sure that all of those domains are listed. But personally, I would say that managing something like that within the Loki checkout or within Magento itself, it would be troublesome. So when I say CSP compliant, it's basically something that is covering the core and all of the extensions with all of the existing features that we cover. And I have to be honest, we didn't actually come up with 3DS compliance within the Magento checkout as well, because most of the clients that we are dealing with are actually needing credit card payments, etc., within their own external payment portal. So that being said, yeah, it's something that we heard about, but yeah, it's a logical thing to say that 3DS is actually an issue with CSP compliance. Gerard is asking, how are integration compatibilities prioritized? Is there some kind of roadmap or tracker? So this is something I referred to already a little bit back. Within the documentation section, so on the website, there's actually milestones, and on those milestones there's actually well, currently we're living towards, we're currently completing already milestone 1.1, but then afterwards we're leading into milestone 1.2. And currently everything that is part of that milestone is something that we see as reachable within that set amount of time. So it's not about semantic versioning or something. It's basically about making sure that a certain integration is built within that specific time frame. But yeah, it's either that we personally help out an agency or a web shop with a specific functionality, or it's basically that a customer, somebody who bought the Loki checkout, comes to us and says, I'm in need for this. So how are things being prioritized? Well, by communicating with each other. So let me know if you need anything else. All right. So the next question is Sepke. I do believe that I know you, but I'm not getting to your real life name. I need to. Do you need to rewrite all of the JavaScript code with a Loki theme? The answer is yes. So with the Loki checkout, that's already the case as well. We're using Alpine underneath, but so is Hyva, and so is the Hyva checkout. But the Alpine code that we're using is totally different. It's a different architecture. It's a different product. And that's the same case for Loki theme as well. And that's kind of like where we say also that Loki theme for Luma is kind of like an edgy story. It's difficult to say, oh, it's ready, because every single third-party extension that is doing something on the JavaScript level needs to be rewritten as well. So for Loki theme for Luma within the checkout, we're easily able to guarantee all of that behavior. But when it comes to migrating a product page or a category page, it's basically something that we would like to put into the community to collaborate upon, instead of just saying, hey, we've done all of the work. All right. Then Wukas is mentioning, where is the name Loki coming from? Well, if you ask that question, most likely you know about the Marvel universe as well. That's not it. The name actually comes from that Ruud collaborated actually on a theme that was labeled Baldur, if I'm correct. And Baldur actually is a Norwegian god, and Loki actually is a Norwegian god as well. And I'm a little bit confused about who married who and who became a brother of who, but basically they're relatives somehow, and therefore Loki was a right match. And Ruud is actually also explaining Loki embodies both chaos and order, and we think Magento needs some chaos to innovate to get to the order, speed, and quality that we need for the future. Well, I personally think that's a great explanation. Do you have some performance comparison? The Loki Checkout improves front-end performance or back-end, but who's the target audience from performance perspective? And that's from Senthil Kumar. I'm not actually totally getting your question, but so earlier in the webinar, I showed you a couple of comparisons, and basically that's something that you can just do to by going to a public demo, looking at all of the different numbers being loaded on a page, and then doing that comparison yourself. But regarding that performance, I think it's not a hard thing to come up with why this is actually so. So we all know that the JavaScript stack of Luma is just horrible. It's too much JavaScript. With Hyva, it got improved dramatically. Well, that's basically an idea that we came up with ourselves to apply Alpine within a certain part of the page, being the Loki checkout. And then basically that's making up the performance gain. And the other part is the Ajax page update technology. We've not seen that in any other environment, in any other Magento technology. Even MageWire is doing something similar, but it's not doing it in a bundled way. Maybe MageWire 3 is doing so. But as of yet, we are fairly confident in saying that the Loki performance is pretty good. Regarding the backend performance, maybe you're referring to the PHP part of performance. Well, we didn't actually do that much there. So we're still depending upon the quote system. We're still depending upon shipping methods and payment methods. And theoretically, that's something to improve, but we'd rather just not do that as part of Loki, but as part of the MageOS community. So yeah, for that matter, there's still more to gain with performance, but when it comes to loading a checkout in a browser, we actually already fixed that issue simply by getting rid of JavaScript. So next question, hopefully I got your answer right. Next question is Mikola Silin. What about expansion, adding a new checkout step, a new payment, or a new checkbox? Well, actually, all of that is focused upon development. So if you want to have a new checkout step, you need to actually get started with a registration in an XML file, then a block definition in an XML layout file, and then a PHTML template, and theoretically a view model class. But all of that stuff is actually pretty native to what you're already used to use within Magento front-ending. So we basically stick to that native technology where we can. And that actually is the same for a checkout step, adding a new checkbox or a field somewhere in an address for that matter. And all of those scenarios that you basically mentioned are already documented in our documentation. And if something is missing there, we're kind of eager to put it in that documentation anyway. But stepping back, is it easy to do that expansion? Well, lately I was writing a so-called playbook scenario for adding a new field to the customer quote. And there's a big discussion to have there, like, are you going to use an EAV attribute? Are you going to modify a core table? Are you going to use an extension attribute, and etc.? But when it comes to the code that you would need for the Loki checkout, it's basically only the XML layout and a specific Loki components.xml. And I was a little bit stupefied that it was actually so simple. But I shouldn't be saying that. Personally, that's kind of like selling your own product, of course, that you're convinced to use. But trust assured, most developers that get started with the Loki checkout are simply just pleased with the overall ability to modify things in an easy way. So I've been flying through a lot of different questions, and hopefully I got most. So Sepke also asked what to do when I can't use Loki Checkout yet because some PSP is missing. So hopefully I already hinted this in an earlier question, but if you come across a certain PSP and you want to have that integrated, first of all, let us know. So depending upon what kind of licenses are being sold, what kind of Loki Checkout instances are being run, we're able to modify the roadmap and change our schedule and etc. We'd rather just spend time on creating a PSP that you would need instead of just coming up with a PSP that is good for marketing. So we're really into the game to fix issues together. So if you have a question about a certain integration, just fear not in asking me or Ruud or others where you can. So hopefully I think we went through it. I think so. And that being said, we're reaching kind of like the end of the webinar. I think there was a lot of things that we discussed already. Hopefully you enjoyed it. There's still maybe questions that you might have later. Feel free to contact me or Ruud for anything of that. Yeah, apart from the Loki checkout, I'm really eager to also see others play around with all of the open source stuff that we are using and pushing into the market. So hopefully there's more time for us to meet up. As mentioned a slide back. Actually, let me go back for that. There's a lot of different events that I'm going to attend and Ruud is going to attend. So maybe we're going to meet up very soon anyway. But I hope you liked it. Thanks for the time in joining this webinar. It's Friday afternoon. So it's about time for a good weekend. Loki, and I hope to see you all soon.